According to the Holy Scriptures, Yahweh Shai, the Son of the Most High, is set to bring immortality to the nation of Israel, the elect, via establishing the tabernacle of David. As we talk about the second coming of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, he is coming to take down this current world ruled by Esau, Edom, and establish a righteous kingdom, which is synonymous with the throne of David. That's scriptural, which is a government that's going to run this world in righteousness.
After this manner therefore pray ye, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
A transfer of rulership is coming, and the kingdom of heaven will be on earth. Righteousness will be spread throughout the whole four corners of the earth. Wickedness will be put down. Eternal life. That's what's promised to the elect. All right, all Israel, but it starts with the elect. And that's how the earth will be governed by immortals, perfect angelic forces who are going to come down and rule on earth. Extraterrestrial bodies will be able to do things that humans do, but in heavenly bodies, like eating, drinking. Did not Yahweh Shai say he's going to drink wine with us in the kingdom? Well, how do you drink wine with a spiritual body? Well, we're going to have out of this world capabilities in those new bodies.
All right, shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Kakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples who was younger brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word and truth and this sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bashem Al Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners who may have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. And what I want to get into, all right, with this live screen, dealing with the collapse of empire, he is on his last leg, okay? Because what we have to understand, what we're seeing play out, this is nothing new, okay? And the empire of Esau has ran this course, okay? And the elites, all right, these ruling families, okay, that really make the decisions, of these governments, especially dealing with America, these Western governments, and even all these governments of the world, all right, the elites, okay, have their hand in the decision making, okay? We seen that with 2020, all right, when all these nations, got on board, all right, with the, with the juice, okay, and the endemic, the lockdowns, okay, we see that these nations are on board, all right, with the, the digital system. All these nations are on board, from America to China to Russia to Iran, okay, the Gulf Arab states, all right. You have the African, states, all 54, African states are talking about, this one, digital, Africa, they got their agenda. And what we're seeing is the Lord is getting ready to collapse his empire. Now, in the mind of the elites, this collapse, they're in full control of this collapse, and they're finna reset the global economy and establish a technocracy. Okay, that's their agenda. But their agenda is going to collide, okay, with the prophecy and the will of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, which is a complete destruction of America, okay, the destruction of this beast system, okay, and Esau and all these heathen nations are going to go in captivity, okay. It's a hell of a plot twist at the end of this story, according to prophecy, man. Now, when you go into the book of Proverbs, chapter 28, and verse 2, it says, for the transgression of a land, many are the princes thereof, but by a man of understanding and knowledge, the state thereof shall be prolonged. And see, when you go into the NLT, all right, Proverbs 28 and 2 in the NLT, it says, where there is moral right within a nation, is government topples easy. So where there is moral right within a nation, all right, and see, the elites have corrupted the earth so much that it's full of moral right. Okay, and every empire that becomes corrupt, it falls, including us. you know, we got corrupted. Okay, the kingdom split. We started to go into idolatry. The northern kingdom went directly into idolatry. It was split because of idolatry at the end of King Solomon's reign. Okay, and then the northern kingdom went directly into idolatry, and then the southern kingdom not long after went into idolatry, man. Okay, and what happened, man? We fell. We got toppled. Okay, northern and southern kingdom eventually went into captivity, man. Okay, and it's just been a cycle of us being toppled all the way into what we at now in this last captivity, man. So even we were toppled because of what? Moral right, man. Okay, and these heathen nations, these empires, they all come into power, which it's all according to the will of the Lord, because every empire was ordained by the Heavenly Father, and they all go through the same cycle, of coming into power, okay, peaking out, all right, in power, and then becoming corrupted, and then being toppled. Okay, and America is no different. Okay, this beast system, the elites, these oligarchs, they run, they do the real decision making behind the scene. They're no different. Okay, so it says where there is moral right within a nation, is government topples easily, but wise and knowledgeable leaders bring stability, and that's going to be, all right, the elect, all right, the governing body, beginning with Yahweh Shai and the first fruit of Israel. Okay, is going to bring stability to the earth. Okay, and we're going to have an everlasting kingdom because we're not going to rot. We're not going to be subjugated to moral rot. Okay, those new bodies, we're going to be perfect. So we're not going to have to deal with moral rot, which causes a government to be toppled. Okay, so this is the last transition of power ever in the planet Earth. It's going to be transition from Esau, Edom to Jacob, and that's the last transition ever, man. Because we're going to be perfected. You see, we're going to be changed. All right, as the Lord destroys, all right, this current kingdom. Okay, He's going to change His elect. Okay, to where we're going to be perfect. You see, we won't have to deal with moral right. Okay, so let's go here. This is the book of Job 21. Okay, it's the book of Job chapter 21 and verse 15. It said, therefore they say unto the Most High, depart from us, for we desire not the knowledge of thy ways. And this is Esau Edom, and this man has, separated the earth because he was never close to the Lord, and as this man has come into power, he has forwarded, a great rebellion in the earth. He pushes people to be in his image, okay, to be rebellious against Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, okay, to be corrupted, all right, to be perverted, to be lewd, okay, to be anti-Messiah. You see, in his new world order, the main theme of his new world order is anti-Messiah. You know, he wants to take this rebellion of the Most High to another level, okay, to the point that he wants to govern existence through technology, okay, and just completely undermine and cut out the Most High, okay. So we're dealing with a man, Esau Edom, that's in power, that has no desire to abide by any authority of Yahweh Bashim Al Shah, man, the Most High. Okay, anything to do with the scriptures, man. Okay, the Bible was just a decoy, you know, for legitimacy to the devil. You know, because a lot of people, you know, the Bible has credibility. You know, even though most people don't understand what the Bible is speaking of, the Bible still has credibility. Okay, and this devil used the Bible as a decoy for credibility, man. But this devil was never about the Bible, man. Going back to the Renaissance, you know, conquistadors, you know, the Spanish. Okay, it was the first ones to really start coming to the New World, setting up shop. All right, raping, robbing, and murdering. Okay, you know, stealing. You see, followed by the French and the British. Okay, which were all Edomites. Okay, and they all came in the name of Jesus Christ. Okay, but these devils never desired, all right, the ways of the Lord. You see, it was all about a power grab for these devils. Like right now, the elites are on the quest for a power grab. All right, but we're finna see, all right, the Lord, all right, we're finna see prophecy. All right, the Lord's gonna cause prophecy, okay, to upset and overthrow and topple everything this man has going on. It said, "What is the Almighty that we should serve Him, and what profit should we have if we pray unto Him?" Okay, in their mind, they don't see, all right, the benefits of serving the Most High, which to them there is no benefits. All right, because they're rejected. And they push their mindset throughout the earth. Like, what's the benefits of serving the Most High? Okay, but He doesn't mind people serving Him. Here it is. He said, He pushes that He's freeing people from, the authoritarian, okay, tyrant, of the Bible. He pushed the Bible as tyranny and old fashioned and, you know, played out, outdated. And that He's, progressing, okay, humanity on to something else, as He's liberating you, okay? But here it is, He's finna put you in the most enslaved, tyrannical system ever known to man. This digital slavery, man. All right, this technocracy is going to be slavery on a whole nother level, okay? But He's fooled the masses as if, He's, all right, the token of liberty, man. You see, He's the standard of liberty. You see, the biggest enchantment in the world. All right, verse 16, lo, their good is not in their hand. The counsel of the wicked is far from me. Okay, how often is the candle of the wicked put out? Okay, so these devils don't understand the reason that they're in a good state is not because of the power of their hand, because the earth given, all right, the earth has been given into the hand of the wicked. Well, who was it given by? All right, the Most High. Okay, and Esau's rulership served the purpose in teaching, all right, the sons of God of how not to be, and also to be a punishment, man, and to be a vexation. So this rulership was meant to be a vexation to us, man. This was a hard lesson from the Most High. Okay, this was the father dealing with his sons, okay, in a very harsh way. Okay, and there's a remnant, okay, of his people are coming back and crying out, and thirsting for righteousness, and it's like, damn, we get it. You see, the Lord is wrapping this man empire up, man. Okay, so all this Esau's ability to rule the earth and prosper in wickedness and be so many steps ahead and do this and do that and win. See, all this being taken away from this devil. He's being made bare. You see, the Heavenly Father is making this nigga bare, man, to where he's having a hard time trying to pull this thing off, man. Okay, so this devil is going to come down with what? Great wrath, man, because he's catching hell. You see, It said, how oft is the candle of the wicked put out? And how oft cometh their destruction upon them? The Most High distributed sorrows in his anger. All right. So how oft does the candle of the wicked be put out? This is nothing new. Esau was just the latest, okay, of the Lord, all right, intervening in the affairs of men and removing the kingdom and setting up another kingdom. Esau was just the latest example. Okay. How oft cometh their destruction upon him? The Most High distributed sorrows in his anger. They are as stubble before the wind, this nuclear destruction, and as chaff, all right, that the storm carried away, man, the chariots, man. Okay, scripture referred to the chariots, being likened to what? A whirlwind, man. You see? So this man is getting, all right, this man is, the scripture say, has been set up in slippery places, man. You know? And how these devils, all right, these elites, they run, these governments, in the background, where you always had, oligarchs amongst these different kingdoms, and it's through these oligarchs that these certain kingdoms will become extremely corrupt, okay, extremely violent and tyrannical, and the Lord will intervene. You see? So let's go here real quick just to show, in kingdoms of past, you always had what they call oligarchs. First, let's go into what an oligarchy is. Okay. When you go to, all right, it says an oligarchy is a form of government or power structure where control rests with a small elite group of people distinguished by wealth, family, military power, or corporate influence. It is defined as ruled by the few, often serving the interests of those rather than the public. All right, the interests of those few rather than the public. Okay, and what we see are governments, okay, ran by these oligarchies, man, these elite families. Okay, now we know in these latter days, as scriptures say, a house divided cannot stand. All right, and these elites, they're divided, and we're seeing that division play out. Okay, now we don't know the details of what's what, but the scriptures say the elites will be divided, man. A house will be divided. Satan shall be divided against Satan. Okay, but ultimately, when you have these oligarchs, man, you have these different elite families. Okay, that really make the decisions behind these puppet governments that are set up. You know, and this is nothing new. All right. I say now how these devils are divided and how much control they have over each government. We know one thing: the Lord has complete control. Okay, we know the elites have limited control, but we know the system which they've been running the earth, which is these oligarchs in the background, man. Okay, but prophecy is beginning to break all this up, man. Okay, and this new world order is meant to serve the interests of the few. Okay, and that's why you have these few families and these different governments that's making moves to benefit the few. Okay, and this is why you see this major resource grab. Okay, at the end of this thing, man. All right, because you best believe that there's rivalries and competitions amongst these oligarchs, man. Okay, you see, like there you go. All right, so these things are playing out exactly unto the Lord's will. But just to give an example, then I have a video I want to go into. Okay, I got a video I want to go into real quick. But just to give an example, when you go here to the book of what is this Baal, Baal and the Dragon. All right, so this is Baal and this is Baal and the Dragon. Now this is during the time, okay, of King Cyrus. All right, so let's read it real quick, and it says this is Baal and the Dragon. All right, verse 1 and 2. We're gonna skip. It says the king Astyages was gathered to his father, and Cyrus of Persia received his kingdom. And Daniel conversed with the king and was honored above all his friends. Okay, so Daniel, all right, was pretty much the hand of King Cyrus, and he was honored above all his friends. So Daniel was right there amongst these elite families, man. That's why I say you niggas that sell out for these crumbs of Esau, okay, to be an internet celebrity, and to get some washed up women and you know some FRN notes. You see, you niggas have no integrity, man. Here it is. Daniel is actually amongst the elites of the Persian Empire, man. Okay, and you niggas sell out, okay, for come on, man. Slave package, pretty much a deluxe slave package, man. Okay, well, there's a whole nother story, but let's go here. And when you jump down and get to the point, because if you read the story, if you haven't read it, it's a good read. All right, it shows how Daniel, showed that King Cyrus that this idol, that they was worshiping, and they was, and it shows you that these heathens, okay, the Cyrus are really believing that that this idol was eating their food. Okay, which just shows you that these elites in every nation, all right, they lacking. Okay, including Esau. All right, no matter how much witchcraft and magic this nigga know, man. When it comes to a lot of things, they're lacking, man. Okay, the fact that Cyrus thought that this statue was eating their food and drinking their wine. Okay, but Daniel proved to him that it wasn't. You read the story; it's a good read. But this is just to prove, okay? Because once Daniel disproved that that statue wasn't eating and drinking, okay, um, the King Cyrus gave Daniel permission to destroy that idol. Okay, well, Yahushua, he's coming to destroy the idols. Okay, of this age, man. Okay, it said then Daniel this is verse 27. Then Daniel took pitch and fat and hair and did seed them together and made lumps thereof. This he put in the dragon's mouth, and so the dragon burst in sunder. And Daniel said, "Lo, these are the gods ye worship." Like, nigga, these are the gods that you worship. Here it is. You have all this power as a man, but you worship a goddamn statue, man. Okay? So Daniel like, look, man, these are the gods you worship. Look what I'm finna do to them. When they of Babylon heard that, they took great indignation and conspired against the king, saying the king has become a Jew. So they were looking at Cyrus like, man, you favoring, this Jew. Blew up our idols. Okay? Showing you that they all simple. But these are the oligarchs, because how are they this close, all right, to the king? How they're able to conspire against the king. Okay, it said this king is a Jew, and he have destroyed Baal and have slain the dragon and put the priest to death. So they came to the king and said, deliver us Daniel, or else we will destroy thee and thine house. Okay, showing you that they had some pull, because they told King Cyrus that they was going to destroy him and his house. Okay, and he didn't deliver them Daniel. Okay, said now when the king saw that they pressed him sore. Okay, so what type of sway did they have, but they was able to press King, all right, Cyrus? Okay, showing you that oligarchs are always, in the background. Okay, it says being constrained, he delivered Daniel unto them, and they would have sway, okay, on the king. Okay, so what we see today with these oligarchs, these small hats, mainly Amalek. Okay, these elite families, they have sway, all right, in these events that we see happening in the earth. Okay, but what's getting ready to happen, because this place is so lewd and so wicked and so corrupt. Okay, because this is Cyrus, this is the first king of the Medo-Persian Empire. Okay, and then it's going to be years later, probably close to 200 plus years later, when you're going to have Darius the third. By the time he gets to the throne, all right, the Persian Empire will fall. Okay, but you best believe these families, they became more corrupt, they became more powerful, and this is what they always do. These oligarchs, okay, when you have these new empire, these oligarchs come into this new wealth, because of new lands and new trade, there's new money. All right, and what do? They become more and more corrupt. Okay, they get more control of the throne. All right, things become wicked and they fall. Okay, so the American empire is nothing different, and these oligarchs, these elites, they're no different, okay, than these oligarchs of old. Now let's play this video here. Okay, it's a pretty good video. Let's go back. Play about 12 minutes of it, and he's gonna pretty much sum up, okay, the American empire and where it's at, man. Okay, so let's.
What if everything happening right now, the war in Iran, the dollar weakening, the chaos in America, wasn't random at all? Stick with me until the end, because once you see the pattern, nothing will look the same. So today, I want to talk about something I believe is truly important. Once you understand this, everything unfolding right now will suddenly make complete sense. The war in Iran, the weakening dollar, the political chaos in America, none of it is random. It's a pattern that has repeated itself across 3,000 years of human history. And right now, America is following that pattern almost perfectly. Okay? Let me introduce you to a historian named Sir John Glubb. Most people have never heard of him. He isn't very famous, but I believe he is one of the most important historians of the 20th century. He was a British general and scholar who spent his entire career studying empires, not just one or two, but all the great ones. The Assyrians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Arabs, the Mongols, the Ottomans, the Spanish, the British. After studying all of them, he published a short book called The Fate of Empires. And in that book, he made one of the most remarkable observations in all of historical scholarship. He said that all empires, without exception, go through the exact same stages, the exact same sequence every single time. And the average lifespan of a great empire is 250 years. Now, I want you to hold that number in your head. 250 years. America is 249 years old. So let's walk through these stages together, because once you understand them, you'll see exactly where America stands right now and why everything happening was always going to happen. Stage one is what Glubb calls the age of conquest. Every empire begins the same way. It's lean, hungry, disciplined, full of raw energy. It expands through military and economic superiority. At this stage, there's no corruption. There's no wealth yet to corrupt. There's no complacency. There's no comfort yet to grow complacent about. The soldiers are motivated. The leadership is focused. The purpose is clear. For America, this was roughly from 1776 through World War II. America fights a revolution against the greatest empire in the world and wins. It expands across an entire continent.
Now we know with the American empire, that it was established on corruption, witchcraft, and it just continually got worse, but when it was a young empire, it began to expand. And we know prophecy, okay, speaks on America, that little horn, okay, we went into that the other day, all right, and it eventually, all right, broke loose, all right, from, the British Empire, which economically, all right, the bankers have always had this clause in the American government, okay, because you had the War of 1776, okay, when America broke free from the British crown, okay, under King George, okay, but then you had the War of 1812, which America won militarily, but it put them in debt, all right, and debt to guess who? The bankers. Okay, so since 1812, the bankers, they had their claws, okay, in the American government, and even certain individuals, these founding forefathers, they was all linked, all right, to Masonic, okay, and Illuminati, okay, secret societies, okay, and what happened? America just kept getting more and more corrupt, okay. Let's go back into it, but from that time to World War II, America just continued to rise, because slavery was, because it had all this free labor from slavery, okay, it was able to become an economic powerhouse, and when you become an economic powerhouse, you become a military powerhouse, okay, and this has been the elite's cash cow for a long time, okay, so let's play this.
It builds the largest industrial economy ever seen. And then in World War II, it does something unprecedented. It fights on two fronts at once, across the Atlantic and the Pacific, against two major powers, and defeats both. Think about what that required. Think about what that took. 18-year-old boys landing on Normandy Beach, knowing most of them would die. soldiers fighting in Pacific jungles against diseases they'd never seen, factories running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, women leaving their homes to build ships and aircraft. That is what stage 1 looks like. Sacrifice, focus, hunger, discipline. And when it was over, America didn't just win the war. It rebuilt its enemies. The Marshall Plan, Bretton Woods, the dollar becomes the world's reserve currency. 800 military bases around the world. At the peak of stage 1, America was genuinely the most powerful civilization in human history. Stage 2 is what Glubb calls the age of commerce. Once military dominance is secured, it turns into economic dominance. The empire controls trade routes. Wealth flows to the center. Living standards rise. The middle class grows. And for a brief golden moment, the empire is both the most powerful and the most prosperous society on earth. For America, this was the 1950s and 1960s. The American middle class at that time was the strongest in the history of human civilization. Factory workers could afford houses, cars, vacations, and college for their kids, all on a single salary. The dollar was backed by gold. American manufacturing outproduced any country ever. American universities were the best in the world. American science put a man on the moon. This is stage 2, and it feels like it will last forever, but it.
We know, America didn't put a man on the moon. The devils were able to get in space. All right, and you can't leave out. You can't leave out there without, Katherine Johnson. The Lord, putting the spirit on Katherine Johnson. All right, a Israelite woman. Okay, what they would call a Negro woman, came up with the mathematics. Okay, for them to be able to get in space. Now Russia beat America in space. Russia was kicking America ass in technology. Okay, they were strides ahead of America, man. Okay, but America did eventually get into space. Okay, and America did, have so much more capital, after World War II to invest in, its technology, man, to where it began to surpass everyone with its technology, man. Okay, but look up Katherine Johnson, all right, the mathematician, okay, of NASA that helped get America into space. Now they lied and said she got them to the moon because she had so much credibility, as a mathematician in NASA. Okay, well they didn't make it to the moon. Okay, just put that out there.
Never does. Stage 3 is what Glubb calls the age of affluence. And this is where things start to go wrong. Wealth creates comfort. Comfort creates complacency. And complacency creates a very specific kind of thinking. We've always been dominant, so we'll always be dominant. We don't need to sacrifice anymore. We don't need discipline anymore. We already won. This is where the military-industrial complex comes in. I've talked about this before. After World War II, America kept its war machine running. Eisenhower, a general himself, warned about it when he left office in 1961. He said, remember these words, beware the military-industrial complex. He was warning that a permanent military establishment combined with a large arms industry would gain too much influence over government, and that influence would distort everything. Instead of the military serving America's strategic interests, America's strategic interests would start serving the military. And that's exactly what happened. Vietnam was the first clear warning. America spent over $800 billion in today's dollars, lost 58,000 soldiers, and accomplished nothing. It left. Vietnam became communist anyway, and there was no accountability. No one asked, why did we spend all this money and achieve nothing? Because in stage 3, the purpose of military spending is no longer to win wars. It's to keep the system going, to keep contractors profitable, generals employed, politicians funded. Winning or losing becomes almost secondary. During this time, America also began exporting its manufacturing to China and Southeast Asia. Wall Street discovered it was more profitable to make money from financial instruments than from making real things. Factories closed. The middle class started shrinking. Wages stopped rising. Real wages for the average American worker peaked in 1973, and they've barely moved since.
Now, just to sum up a few things he was saying, when you had it to where, you had this this military machine, all right, where you had this extravagant military budget, all right, this defense budget, but the military budget had nothing to do with defense. Okay, the military budget, all right, was based on, enriching, all right, these contractors, these arms contractors, and also protecting, all right, the interests of the elites, okay, or going to pillage the earth. Okay, see, America loses a lot of wars militarily, okay, but the bank interests are served in these wars, okay. So America loses these wars militarily, but the bank's interests are served, and these contractors get rich. You see, the elites are always at the top, all right, and their interest is the top priority for American wars. Okay, for all wars, but especially American
Think
wars.
about that. 50 years and no real raise.
Yeah, but especially American wars. Okay, so the bankers will come in and they'll, all right, the war creates, all right, it'll destabilize an economy. Okay, it'll destabilize a country, and the elites can come in and insert, certain corporations in these companies. They'll set up, puppet governments that's friendly, all right, to the West. Okay, and what these governments do, they begin to allow, all right, all these private businesses to come in, and extrapolate the resources and make a profit, and they'll give, the government or their nation a little kickback, this puppet government a little kickback, while the rest of the nation is in shambles. Okay, and they do that model all throughout the earth, man. That's why America military is always in some type of war, some type of conflict, always some type of regime change, because all this money that goes into the defense budget is to make, all right, uh is to serve the interests of the elites, with these resources and these corporations, and to get these nations to where these resources are being sold, okay, on the world market for the American dollar, which strengthens the dollar. Okay. So then you have these contractors, these defense contractors who get wealthy, okay, off these wars. And see, people look at, well, America has this, big budget, and then they have, $1 trillion military at this point. But a lot of that stuff is overpriced. They have, just regular boats, that cost $7 to $8. Well, the military, these contractors sell these same boats and minor parts for $1,200, $1,300 a boat. So you got a rocket, that has, hundreds of these boats in it. So now it runs up the price, okay, per missile, because this nigga is charging $1,200 per boat. Okay. And they're able to do that because they have a monopoly, okay, on the contracts. Okay. So the military, like when you go into the Navy is supposed to protect a country's borders, okay, from invasions on the waters. Okay. If a nation wanted to invade America, well, the Navy is supposed to be guarding the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Gulf, okay, from any potential invasions. No, what is the Navy doing? It's securing trade for the elite bankers. Okay, this merchandise for these elite bankers, these oligarchs. That's what the military is a global security guard for the elite bankers' interests. It's either it's either a they're either mercenaries to go and rob and pillage, okay, or they're securing what they robbed and pillaged. Okay, so you go into special forces. These special forces, that's why they invest so much in special forces, for do what? Regime change, okay, and to topple governments, okay, to destabilize governments. Then the army comes in, okay, and occupies the land. And then the Air Force come in with the technology, okay, and it's all for the interest of the elite bankers, man. So they don't care about winning. The elites don't care about winning or losing militarily. Okay, they care about their interests being served when the conflict is done. Okay, that's how they operate. So America doesn't win a lot of wars militarily. The American military is not built, to just win wars. They're meant to be able to destabilize and cause a lot of damage, shock and awe. Okay, and as we get to Iran, this is where it didn't work like it usually worked. Okay, So now we're seeing, now we're seeing scrambling, which the elites, they still going to be able to do a global reset, okay? And they still, got these nations on board with this new world order, okay? That's still in effect. And what we're finna see, all right, is these nations brawl for it all, man. As we get closer to the devil rolling out this new world order, these nations are going to brawl for it all, okay? Which is going to lead to a nuclear holocaust, all right, and the return of Yahushua. You see, but we know, that the civil unrest, the persecution of the prophets, and the MOTB, that has to take place before it can get to that point. All right, but we're in the build up to that, you know. But yeah, let's play this some more.
That is stage 3, wealth at the top, stagnation at the bottom, and an establishment too comfortable to admit there's a problem. Now we come to stage 4. This is the critical stage. Glubb calls it the age of decadence. Let me be very clear. Decadence here does not mean moral failure. It does not mean the people are bad. It means the system itself has become self-destructive. It's eating itself from within. And 4 things happen at the same time, reinforcing each other, which is why no empire has ever escaped this stage. First, military spending becomes completely divorced from military results. America spends about $900 billion a year on its military, more than the next 10 countries combined. China spends about $250 billion. Russia spends about $80 billion. Yet America couldn't defeat the Taliban in Afghanistan. Fighters in sandals with Kalashnikovs. It couldn't stabilize Iraq after 20 years. And right now in Iran, it's spending $3 million interceptor missiles to stop $50,000 Iranian drones.
Like I said, when you go to Afghanistan, what happened after Afghanistan? They got control of those poppy fields, all right? And that's when the pharmaceutical industry, all right, made a killing. That's why you have, this epidemic, with the opioids, okay? Because they was able to get control of those poppy fields, okay? These major corporations, all right, were able to, take control of their natural resource, okay, which enriched a lot of American corporations, okay? So as far as actually, because when you go into military, if you're going to go and conquer, okay, another land, well, when you conquer that land, you're supposed to establish, all right, a government, okay, and you're supposed to be able to maintain order of that government, okay? But when you go into Afghanistan, it's chaotic. But the elites, they achieve their agenda, with the opioid, okay? But then you go into Iraq. Iraq, it's in chaos right now. But the elites achieve their agenda with the oil, okay? Iraqi oil, okay? The profit from Iraqi oil goes to American banks, okay? That was the agenda. All right, so they lose a lot of wars militarily, but the elites, the interests of the elites are served. Okay, Iran, they were supposed to go take Iranian oil. Okay, because there's a million ways they can shut down the economy and cause a global reset. They can do that in so many ways. They can just say, "Oh, it's a cyber attack." They can just shut the grid off. They showed it's nothing but an on and off switch for the grid. Okay. They can do, a major, false flag, or, it's a lot of ways they can shut this thing down. Okay. But them devils, they really wanted to get that Iranian energy, man. That was going to be a major power play. Okay. You see? So it's interesting to see how this playing out. But we know these devils, they play both sides and they got interest in every government in the earth. Okay, because the earth has been given into their hand. You see, but we can't not, all right, count out prophecy. Okay, because it get to the point where the elites ain't talking about a goddamn thing. Prophecy is speaking. Okay, so let's play this.
and struggling. Here's the game theory point I want you to really understand. When the cost of an action consistently exceeds the benefit, a rational actor stops. But an empire in stage 4 cannot stop because the military-industrial complex has captured the political system. It's a closed loop, and that loop is designed to keep spending going regardless of results. This isn't stupidity. It's a system doing exactly what it's designed to do. But what it's designed to do is destroy the empire. The second thing in stage 4 is that debt becomes existential. America now has about $36 trillion in national debt, and it's adding roughly $2 trillion more every year. But here's what most people miss. America is now spending about $1 trillion per year just on interest payments, not paying down the debt, just the interest. That's more than the entire defense budget of any other country. America spends more on interest than China spends on its whole military. This creates a debt trap. You borrow new money to pay interest on old money. The interest on the new money adds to the debt, requiring more borrowing. It's a mathematical spiral. The only exits are default or inflation, both of which destroy the currency. And every bomb dropped in Iran, every expensive interceptor adds to that spiral. The third thing is that the empire weaponizes its currency until it can't anymore. After World War II, America created the Bretton Woods system and later the petrodollar. The deal was simple. Global trade, especially oil, would be in dollars. That created permanent demand for the dollar, allowing America to print and run deficits like no other country could. But in stage 4, it starts weaponizing that tool. Sanctions on Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, freezing Russian assets. Now, if you're another country holding dollars and you see America freeze $300 billion of reserves overnight, what do you learn? Your dollars aren't safe. So you start moving them out. You build alternatives. That's exactly what's happening. BRICS now represents about 40% of global GDP. They're building non-dollar payment systems, settling trade in local currencies, buying gold. Saudi Arabia is selling oil to China in yuan. America thought it was punishing enemies. Instead, it gave every country the strongest possible reason to abandon the dollar. Short-term power move, long-term self-destruction. And the fourth thing in stage 4 is that the social fabric breaks from within. America has the highest homelessness rate of any developed country. Its infrastructure is crumbling. Life expectancy is declining. Drug addiction is a national crisis. Wages have been stagnant since 1973 in real terms. Meanwhile, the richest 1% now own more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. This creates a population that has lost faith in its institutions. People can't even agree on basic facts. Elections offer candidates that neither side fully trusts. The country is both the wealthiest and the most internally fractured major power in the world. An empire facing external pressure, while fracturing internally, faces a two-front problem. Resources for external threats get eaten by internal problems, and resources for internal problems get eaten by external threats. They feed each other. Rome faced exactly this. Now here's the most important insight of this entire analysis, and it comes from game theory. People always ask, why don't the people in charge fix this? Can't they see the problem? The answer is the prisoner's dilemma at civilizational scale. Every individual actor makes the rational choice for themselves, but together, those choices create catastrophe. Defense contractors need wars. Banks need dollar dominance. Politicians need their money. Media needs their advertising. Generals need their post-retirement jobs. Every decision is rational. The collective result is destruction.
Yeah, so every, individual decision, and that's a beautiful point, because you have the politicians, they're scheming, they're scamming the stock market, they're doing kickbacks for certain contracts. Everybody's just serving their own interests because it's so corrupt now. Okay. The elites, they need wars to get more control, because they're able to make, so much change during crisis. All right. The defense contractor, they need continual wars to sell these weapons that they're manufacturing, so they need continual war, continual conflict. So logic goes out the window, and it's all about greed. Okay, it's all about power grabs, it's all about money grabs. Okay, and logic goes out the window. So you have everyone serving their own personal interests. Okay, like this current war now, you have Donald Trump and his cronies. They're doing money grabs. Well, the elites don't need a money grab. All right, they doing the power grab. Then you have the defense contractors. Okay, they're making money off of what? Selling weaponry, man. You see? So logic goes out the window and everyone begins to serve their own personal interests, man. Okay? And the empire just begins to implode. Okay? And this happens over and over again, man. All right. So now we're just at the stage of collapse. Okay. And this is the last time that this is going to happen because the Lord is finna put up, all right, a righteous government in the earth, beginning with Yahweh Shah. The throne of David is getting ready to be established in righteousness and perfection this time. Okay. This time we're going to be perfected. Okay. So let's play a little more of this.
No empire has ever escaped stage 4 from within because the prisoner's dilemma has no internal solution. The only thing that changes it is a big enough external shock. The empire didn't. It's usually 3 things happening at once: a currency crisis, loss of allies, and an internal political rupture. Let me give you the British example, the most recent and clearest. In 1939, Britain still had the largest empire in history. By 1949, it was over. World War II destroyed their finances. India gained independence in 1947. Palestine collapsed in 1948. The dollar replaced the pound as the reserve currency. All 3 forces converged in 1 decade. Now connect this to today. America is deep in stage 4. 3 things are accelerating us towards stage 5 right now. First, a war it cannot win. Iran prepared for 25 years. America went in with no plan beyond bombing. It's spending millions to stop cheap drones and struggling. Its carriers and surveillance assets are being challenged. Every day drains resources, credibility, and will. But the system can't stop. It can only double down. Second, a debt it cannot repay. $36 trillion, $1 trillion in annual interest, plus war costs on top. A dollar crisis is coming. Third, a currency the world is actively replacing. BRICS, gold buying, yuan, oil deals. The de-dollarization is happening and accelerating. When multiple independent actors, China, Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, India, Brazil, all move in ways that converge on the same outcome, that's dominant strategy convergence. No conspiracy needed, just rational self-interest producing the same result. The end of stage 4 and the arrival of stage 5. So let me bring it all together. Sir John Glubb studied every major empire. They all follow the same 5 stages. Average lifespan, 250 years. America is 249 years old. Right now, America is showing all 4 hallmarks of stage 4 while facing the external pressures that push empires into stage 5. No empire that reached stage 4 has ever escaped stage 5 without radical change. And the prisoner's dilemma tells us that radical change from within is almost impossible, because everyone who could change the system benefits from keeping it exactly as it is. So the question isn't whether America reaches stage 5. The historical record across 3,000 years shows a 0% survival rate without transformation. The only question is, how fast and what comes next?
We know what comes next. Okay? Because according to prophecy, we know that America is going to fall. All right. And these elites, in their mind, they think that they're going to have a technocracy, post, America dominance, man. No, man. Okay? Yeah, because America is going to be destroyed at the same time Yahweh Shah shows up. Okay? So Yahweh Shah is coming to clear the board. All right? To take it all down. Okay, so any plan, all right, that these nations have post-America, because you can tell these nations are planning for post-America, man. Okay, they're planning for a world order, all right, where America's irrelevant. Okay, but they don't understand, like, no, you're all going to be irrelevant. Okay, and all these nations are getting ready to go into captivity. Now, that's why you go here into Daniel 2 prophecy. Okay. It's the book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 35. Okay. I started at 34. Daniel 2 and 34 says, "Thou sawest," that this is Daniel breaking down the dream. The king kept It's like the king Nebuchadnezzar. It said, "Thou sawest to that a stone was cut without hands, which smote the images upon his feet, that were of iron and of clay, and break them to pieces." Okay. And that stone was Yahweh Shai, who was cut out without hand. Okay, because he's coming from a power that's not of this world. All right, it's not of the hands of man. All right. And the feet of the statue represents, all right, America, NATO, and the EU. Okay, this ruling power structure that dominates the earth today. Okay, and Yahweh Shai, he's coming to break it up. Okay, through a war, a righteous war that he's going to rage. Then was the iron, the clay, okay, the silver, the gold, because you go up, all right, into the gold, the Syrian Babylonian Empire, all right, the silver, the Medo-Persian Empire, the brass, okay, which was the Greek Empire, and the iron, which was the Roman Empire. You know, because Yahweh Shai is coming to take down all the heathen, okay, which will be headed by Esau, Edom at this time, the 10 toes. Okay, but all these heathens, think they up next. All right, they making these alliances, planning for, post-American world. Okay, within this technocracy. Okay, nah, man, they're gonna lose. It says together and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away. The nukes, that no place was found. All right, for them. All right, the nukes and the chariots. Okay, no place. All right, so no place of power is going to be found for them, man. Okay, I mean, no position of authority, man. All these heathens will be reduced, all right, to slaves, man. Okay, it says, and the stone, all the ones that survive are going to be reduced to slaves, man. Okay, there's going to be no contingency of government amongst these heathens, man. They're all going to be, all power is going to be stripped away from all these heathens, man. Okay, and the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. And the stone that smote the image, Yahweh Shai. Okay, that's that stone, that rock. It said it became a great mountain, which is what? A great government, and filled the whole earth. You see, and filled the whole earth. Okay, so this is where we at in prophecy, man. All right, that the Lord is going to establish the government of Israel, the throne of David, and this is going to fill the earth. This is going to dominate the earth forever in righteousness, man. And we'll never be morally corrupted because we're going to be perfected. Okay, we'll never be morally corrupted because we're going to be perfected, man. So Lord will, man, we make it. And we're part of this first deliverance, the coming of Yahweh Shai, man, because we're at the time of transition of power, the last regime change, man. And Lord will, we endure, and we're in this change, man. We're in this transition, man, and reign with Yahweh Shai, man. Okay, but there's no doubt Esau it is in, okay, Amalek, okay, these heathens, every last one of these heathens, they're at their end, and the Lord is going to usher in this great mountain, man, the great righteous everlasting government of Israel, which is going to fill the whole earth, man. It's going to conquer the whole earth, So that was the point. Just wanted to get into that, Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters was edified once again. Give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Mekakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS, who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom.